going to be in English.
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to take on the issue of the space of reasons. See if we can make head and tails of of uh, the idea that maybe the very idea of a space of reasons will make sense from the point of view of Pan-mnemism, that is, from the point of view of memory assemblages. So yeah, so you were reading these bits on the
Sure.
ineffectivity,
Yeah.
And then thinking about the space of reasons. Yeah, well, my claim would be that reason is probably, and the space of reasons is probably not a very good concept, not a very good way of putting things.
Right. And I mean, I get it, and I get that, like, again, in the post-Kantorian world, it is problematic. But I was wondering when I began to read this part, yeah, paths to inefficiency, to ineffectivity, um, of like if we need to do this drastic of a jump from bringing the space of reasons into questioning to, the thought has no connection to the world, yeah, to reality, yeah. And I was thinking that, like, for example, yeah, with the whole like Aristotle's idea of the to analyze two hypotheses, you go with the one that doesn't have contradictions in it, and but since Guido and stuff, you can't really know because you can determine if something uh, doesn't have a contradiction, yeah. And I was thinking that, like, maybe, like, sure that this super certain and very, like, you know definitive character of reason is put into question. But I think that, again, thinking on that idea that you told me that some other guy said, of like, well, then we need to judge on if what contradictions can we detect. Yeah, if we can detect a contradiction, we should go for that one, because what matters is what I would get expanding on that idea, but justifying it another way. Yeah, so, like, maybe there's still some value in the space of reason, in the sense of, like, you go with the one that has, like, because, like, what's the difference really between proving, not being able to prove that there aren't contradictions, and the idea that everything is contradictory? Yeah, because in the sense of, like, you could just choose the one that you can't prove is free of contradictions, but you also can't find the contradictions because there's a chance, in a way, that could be free of contradictions. Yeah. So through that, the space of reason would still do something. There would still be a connection with thought, with reality. Yeah. A very a much weaker one with a lot less certainty, but it would operate in the idea of choosing the chance of non-contradiction against the certainty of contradiction. Yeah? You know what I mean? That way, reality would still affect thought in the space of reasons. There would still be a tribunal of experience. So we fall more into, like, a Quinian place than a Davidson place. Yeah?
Well, I'm not sure I understood the last bit you said, that you're gonna fall into a more Davidsonian or Quinian
No, because, like,
place, but yeah, okay.
no, because, like, look, if I am if I am able to judge if propositions, like, again, you are not able to judge if propositions are contradictory or not. Yeah, you can't do that anymore. But again,
You never could, yeah.
Yeah, you never could. But on this way, you'd be able to say, well, this one, there's a chance that it's contradiction free. Yeah. So in a way, the space of reasons would still come into play somewhat. You know what I mean? You'd still shave off.
You mean Davidsonian in the sense that that there is a holism about that, in that sense, or in some other sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, in the idea that, like, again, maybe then we could escape the idea of, because again, I don't know if the only way in face of, Guido is to just outright go with the, oh no, okay, reality and thought, two separate things, we can't do that. If you don't want to bite that bullet, maybe a way to justify the space of reasons would be with this idea of,
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, maybe something escapes from me, because maybe there is an idea that there's a Davidsonian idea here that I cannot bring to focus right now, but we leave it for a second. What I think is at stake is you don't have a general. I mean, the point is you don't have a general connection between thought and the world. So that connection, that's why, for instance, the dynamus meta-logo that Aristotle postulated is a meta-rational potentiality, a meta-rational capacity. It's a capacity, it's a general capacity.
Right.
Thought, in a sense, enjoys that kind of capacity of relating to the world. I think this is what is at stake.
Sure.
So it's not the capacity of thought in particular to be in contact with the world, with bits of the world in particular. Mm-hmm. It's like about the generality of this connection, the generality of this capacity to actually attain something, no matter what specifics are concerned. Attain something about the world, no matter the specifics that are concerned. So if we consider if to abandon this idea means that thinking is not luminous in the sense that it's not transparent. I mean, its quality, its capacity to be able to approach, to be close to reality is not obvious to itself. So, for instance, then you can say you've got two hypotheses, say hypothesis A and hypothesis B, and A is contradictory, B we don't know if it's contradictory or not. Right. But then, in a sense, what you have is our own incapacity to spot inconsistency. So our own or thoughts, if you want to, the thinking subject is incapable of doing that. But then, of course, I mean, the thinking subject we're going to have actually, understand, I mean, maybe there is no such a thing as a thinking subject in general. So we have like different thinking subjects, and we are maybe experiencing an incapacity to actually make consistency transparent, and consistency is never transparent. Mm-hmm. So we are under the impression that something is consistent. So in a sense, you can say there is a chance that we can be right. So, but there is a chance that we can be right only given our own capacities. So I think what you're suggesting, in a sense, puts things in a different way, in probably more acceptable way. But I think it still connects with our own capacities to actually, spot contradictions or not spot contradictions. So in a sense, I think we can make a comparison with something like, you've got say, two fruits. One is rotten, the other one you don't know whether it's rotten or not. Mm-hmm. But and of course it makes sense to choose the one that you don't know if it's rotten or not. But in a sense, it depends on our capacity to actually detect that.
Right.
Yeah. And so, in a sense, that's probably the best way to actually try to counter the argument that there is an ineffectivity, but still, in a sense, there's nothing effective about it, because in a sense, there is no such thing as like a kind of an assurance that can be achieved by reason, that something is transparently consistent. Now, I think the bite that probably I'm not quite understanding right now of what you were saying is that maybe there is a Davidsonian way out, in the sense that maybe you can say something like, oh, there is if I take most of my theories, I can be sure that most of them are consistent.
Yeah, but you
even
don't
though
know
I cannot,
which ones are consistent or not. Yeah.
Even though I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
I cannot spot. I cannot be that's a holism of the issue.
Yeah, exactly.
So that, for instance, among all my worldview or whatever kind of sizable critical mass of beliefs or propositions or sentences.
I know that there's a critical part that needs to be right. Even though I don't know.
There is a critical part that is consistent, that ought to be consistent, even though I don't know which bit is there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I think this is.
Doesn't this matter? Doesn't this kind of mean that there is some general like relation with thought and reality? Because again, for something to be compared, to schemes to be compared, there needs to be some sort of.
Sure. I mean, the problem would be then you cannot think of reasons, cannot think of the space of reasons, cannot think of you would be saying you cannot think of reasons, and you cannot think of the connection between the world and thinking in the world in an atomistic level, in the level where you have like individual sentences, and that's the point.
Yeah.
So basically, you have. So the connection is really like, if you consider like the whole thing or a critical mass of things, if you consider like a sufficiently large chunk of thinking, and then you can have a connection with the world only with sufficiently large
clusters.
chunks, with big clusters. Yeah, not any cluster, but a cluster that is kind of enough for this to happen. So in a sense, the connection would be there, not only because you have truth, you have some truth there. Say the majority of what you're saying is true, but the majority of what you're saying is general knowledge, if you want to go this way, but the majority of what you're saying is consistent. Now, I'm not sure you can stay that. This is a very kind of interesting solution, but in a sense, I'm not sure in the undecidability results wouldn't affect that as well, because in a sense that would mean that consistency is not transparent, is not like obvious, self-evident in individual cases, but yes, it is luminous or transparent in a broader case. And I don't think you have this distinction when it comes to decidability issues. So in a sense, my problem with this is that either you want to go all the way Davidsonian, and then I don't think you have. I mean, in a sense, I don't think you have a special protection against the decidability results. And on the other hand, if you just stay with what you're saying in the beginning, just like, let's go for what we think is, But then what we think is going to take us as the way I think is like is going to take us to a Kantian path.
Sure. No, but the thing about like I don't think the Davidsonian way is a protection against the undecidability, because again, if you're analyzing like the chunks, yeah, it still wouldn't be transparent. You know, you're maintaining the indecidability. It still wouldn't be transparent because you still couldn't tell which ones are the ones that are free of contradiction or not. You know what I mean? So you still could never prove that there isn't any contradiction. Yeah, you could still never like prove. You maintain the idea that it is undecidable because you maintain the idea that you can't prove if that something is contradiction free. You just know that some of them are. You see, so I don't think you're going against it necessarily, and it's not a protection against it. It's just
no. But I mean, in a sense, I mean, if I understand you right, in a sense, you don't have that for the chunks, but also you couldn't. My point is that you couldn't have this for the global, for the for the massive of critical mass. Yeah?
Mhm.
Say let's say chunks of critical mass.
Sure.
Basically, you cannot do it for the chunks, but then you cannot do it for the critical mass as well. So in a sense, the results concerning indecidability that they are not limited to the individual or the kind of small kind of scale, whatever it is, cases. They would apply to the critical mass as well. If you apply to critical mass, then you cannot make the argument that David would like to make, say, about truth. So you wouldn't be able to do it for consistency.
Right.
So in a sense, that would mean that that we have to. I mean, the undecidability results kind of have an impact on, as you were saying, on the kind of relation between thought and world, thought and being from outside.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like really like as if like you're looking like at a kind of two things from a sideways on view, like from outside, and without being inside.
Situated.
Without being situated in the sense that Davidson's beliefs are always like connected to other beliefs in a web of beliefs. Mm-hmm. So it's like no matter no internal kind of feature of the web of beliefs would help you out
with undecidability.
Yeah.
Right. No, I see it.
So, but still, I mean, I think the question is very interesting because, in a sense, then you are thinking, perhaps, maybe you can, maybe you can kind of isolate, or what's the word? You can kind of friction the undecidability results with an argument of a Davidsonian style that would run more or less like this. Yes, but I will need consistency. I will need consistency in the web of beliefs. I will need that in order for beliefs to work the way they work, in order for beliefs to be understandable, for them to be interpretable. So interpretation requires consistency. Mm-hmm. So in a sense, you cannot, even you've got the undecidability results, but then you've got the need for consistency. Consistency is needed by a critical mass of beliefs so that they are genuine beliefs and they can be true or false somehow. So in a sense, then I think is interesting because in a sense it's like you're saying like, oh, you've got a way to actually tame the undecidability results. You're like, okay, I don't know, but I have these things. I need these things to be consistent. I need the critical mass to have like an amount of consistency. So I think that would be interesting. On the other hand, on the other hand, I mean, if you press too much in this direction, then again you might feel that your whole story, I don't know, came too late, in the sense
Mm.
that you already sort of giving in to the Kantian picture, in the sense of saying, oh, this is our needs because
Right.
we deal with the world in terms of beliefs. So
Hmm.
thinking is not about the structure of thinking itself. It's a structure of us
And our
related
needs.
to beliefs, because our beliefs are situated, etc., etc. So in a sense, there is a Kantian element in Davidson that you
Always there.
cannot completely
Get
exercise.
rid of, yeah. No, for sure. I mean, that's always a problem with Davidson, yeah.
Yeah,
Tons.
well, yeah. I mean, in a
But
sense, it's like I mean, to me, this is very close to the issue of whether Davidson is, in the end of the day, say a correlationist. Yeah,
well,
because in a sense, you're not dealing with the absolute. You're dealing you reach truth only uh, through your beliefs.
web
Yeah,
of beliefs, yeah.
yeah,
Not reality, yeah.
yeah.
Right. No, absolutely. Um, but then, when I was reading the one of the other, what is it? What is the name? Paths to inefficiency, to ineffectivity. I hate that word. Holy shit. But you're talking about the divergence, yeah, and you were talking about the old example, the old Wittgenstein example that you like so much about adding to, yeah, and all that stuff. And I don't know if I can formulate it properly, but it kind of like I kept thinking about this relation, right, between again normativity, if you will, uh, and community, yeah. And okay, sure, you need a community to know if the rules are being followed properly. To have rules, you need a community, and again, to know if the math is right and you're following the proper rules of math. Even if you're God, you still need a community of mathematicians. Okay. Um, and I kept thinking how that affects this idea of like, because when you're like, again, in this hypothesis of the space of reasons and this idea of like being able to judge a proposition, sorry, um, based on contradictions or not, yeah. Um, in a way, because okay, so what you're denying there, what you're denying is the general relation between thought and reality. Yeah, thought doesn't have like a general, uh, but in a way, if like the procedure to see if something has a contradiction or not, uh, the thought process, whatever, yeah, to decide if something has a contradiction or not, is also dependable on a community at some level, yeah? In the sense of like, if you're taking seriously the whole Wittgenstein idea, um, just like if to do math, you need a community to do whatever that may be, logics, or you need a community to then, so that you can be sure that your process of trying to say what has a contradiction and what hasn't is right. You need the community, yeah, right. You need like because again, this will also be formed by what is it, the tutor, yeah. That this would also be formed by outside influences, yeah. And yeah, in a way, um, again, this is hard to formulate. I don't know if I can do it properly, but like if you take the Wittgensteinian idea properly, yeah, like seriously enough, yeah, um, I can't see how that's not like how in a way, okay. So thought doesn't have like a general thing. Yeah, it needs to be like specific and stuff. But in a way, it seems that like again, like the reality, the outside world, yeah, structures your own reasoning. You know what I mean? Like because every process of reasoning, even the ones that are being like attacked by Guido and undecidability and stuff, yeah, also depend on also being molded and formed by the tutors, by the community and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, but that's why. Yeah. Okay.
No, yeah, no, but like in a way, it's like okay. So if you're saying like okay, there's no way to decide, yeah, you can't know if there's contradiction or not, blah 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 blah. That process, this whole thing is also formed by the community, by the tutors,
Yeah.
by reality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like one thing is very impregnated by the other, very like I don't know if I'm.
Yeah, but that's exactly. I mean, this is why, in a sense, the path of divergence is different from the path of indecidability. Yeah, they are related but are different, but both of them lead to the idea. I mean, one of the ideas that they lead is the idea that you have no good reason to actually talk about reason. Yeah, because then what kind of reason are you going to have? The reason is going to be completely associated to the community. It's going to be completely associated to the community that sanctions it. So it's not going to be the logical space of reason. It's going to be the logical space of sanctions. Now, of course, this could sound like too much of a Kripkean reading of Wittgenstein, in the sense that everything depends on a community. Maybe there is more to that. Maybe there is something that has to do with what you're saying before. For instance, McDowell suggests the idea that you can have an externalist reading. Externalist reading would amount to say that God could very well carry on expanding pi, without a community of mathematicians. He could get it absolutely right, but there is no way that God could know. God doesn't need to know, but God could be right without knowing. Yeah? So that is a possibility. So like that is similar to what you were saying before. For instance, you have like a contradiction free thing, even though you don't know if it is contradiction free or not. So in a sense, you could have this other alternative. But then in a sense, in order for you to have a space of something, you have to be able to compare in a public language, I understand, one thing with the other, like the logical space of colors, in a sense, is such that, because of sanctions, you would say that red is a color and green is a color, you understand, and you become an effective speaker of the language when you know this kind of grammatical things about logical space. And I don't think you can have this with reasons. Exactly, because basically what would count as a reason, yeah? That's the problem. That's the problem of divergence. Like, for instance, what would count for as a reason for someone like the pupil in 185 would be something different from the pupil that gets it wrong about adding two.
Sure.
So basically you have a divergence here, yeah. Because imagine you have a community here. Two different communities, like for instance, in that very moment. I mean, I think this is the story I tell. Imagine you have two different communities. One that is taught by the pupil, and another one that is taught by ordinary practices in mathematics.
Sure.
So if these communities don't talk to each other, basically what is a reason? Yeah. So you have so basically you have two different ways. You have divergent ways, and of course, it's pretty much like Nelson Goodman kind of situation where you you could have divergence everywhere, at every moment.
At every step of the way, there's
Every
a risk
step
of
of the way.
divergence. Yeah.
Exactly.
But the thing is um, like the whole like idea that um, the idea of undecidability. Again, if we're taking Wittgenstein seriously in this reading, uh, it also depends on its community and the sanctions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because again, every single like norm following whatever would depend on a community. So, in a sense, like just like there can be a community where the pupil teaches them that after the 1,000 mark you started adding four really, and the other you could have like this divergence in the whole like scheme of undecidability. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is the sense of like, to me it seems that like if we're saying that like reason as a whole is depending on a community, it
No,
seems that like
absolutely. I
the
understand the point. I think it's very
the-
good. I think it's a very interesting point. It's basically judging, undecidability is based on rules, yeah? It doesn't have to
exactly
be based on rules. So basically, the problem with divergence would affect it as
the
well.
undecidability
But that's what
as
I'm
well
saying.
as reason, because
Yeah.
undecidability is kind of like a critique of reason born out of thought. It's a critique
Yeah.
of thought born out of thought. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
So basically, to me, it means that you have two different critiques, yeah?
Mhm.
But if you add the two, one with the other, the result, if you add the two of them, basically the result you have is that, you have more reasons to believe, or have enough reasons to believe that, there's no such thing as a reason, as something. Because I think that's the idea. A reason as something that connects thought and being,
Sure.
thought and world. So basically, I think that's why reason is so crucial, because reason is anything that you can imagine that would make that bridge, right? Because
Mhm,
if you
mhm.
don't, if you don't have reason, then you don't have, at least you don't have a
That
general
connection.
bridge.
Sure.
If you don't have a space of reasons, you're not going to have like that bridge. You have something like the space of reasons. So basically, so in both cases, in both paths, and the two of them together, that means that there is no such thing as reason, because indecidability involves divergence, right?
Sure.
And in a sense, any statement of an appropriate divergence would involve indecidability as well. So in a sense, one applies to the other.
they're
In a
always
sense,
right.
but the result is not that one contradicts the other. It's not that the second one saves the first, or vice versa. But
They're
both
just
of them go in the same direction.
Intertwined. Right.
So, so in a sense, there is you know, no way to actually rely on reasons as something that can be completely extricated from, a given history and a given community. So, in a sense, that means that there is no such thing as a general reason. So there is no such thing as a general
Right.
contact between thought and being. So there is no such thing as um, a general capacity, which is the rational capacity, the meta-rational capacity,
Mhm.
to actually grasp the world from thinking.
No, for sure. For sure. For sure. On the third path, the ineffectivity through indexicality, I think. This one I just didn't understand, to be honest. So I have like some, because I might be misunderstanding probably indexicalism, yeah, in this aspect. But okay, so if everything is situated, yeah. So as you say here, like every substantive is situated. Yeah, there's always an indexicality to it, and if you know, in a way, again, like just like with Davidson's idea that every proposition is situated in a web of beliefs, I figured that maybe indexicalism meant that like could mean that like every proposition, for example, could be situated, but not in a web of beliefs, but actually in the world. You know what I mean? Because there's always a point of view. You're always thinking from somewhere. So, in a way, couldn't that give us a bridge between reality and thought? This necessity of everything to be situated, not in a scheme of beliefs, not within thought, but in the world.
Well, it's not. In the case of indexicalism, it's maybe about propositions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of Davidson, I doubt it's just about beliefs. Yeah.
Sure.
But I mean, the reason I'm saying this is that when you are connected indexically with a situation, when you are situated in a sense that it depends not on the beliefs you have, but depends on the position you actually are. So, in a sense, there is an element that is thoroughly external here. Thoroughly external. It depends on. I mean, you might not know where you are, but you are where you are.
Right.
So, in a sense, it's very different because it depends on how are you positioned with respect to other things in the world. So that is you are somewhere. Now, is there a connection between thought and being? If you think this way, well, there's always going to be a connection between thought and being, because being is going to inform thinking. Yeah.
Sure.
Because if thinking is indexical and being is indexical, so there is a mutual information here. I mean, at least there is information on one side from being to thinking. However, there is no dynamus metalogo. There is no general capacity. There is no general rational capacity. What there is a capacity that is thoroughly situated, is thoroughly specific. So you've got just that. The things get a little more complicated if you think, well, yeah, but then indexicalism is not just it's not just saying you are always situated. It's also saying you are always situated. There's an always there, and there's a thesis. There's a general thesis about the character of thought and being. So in a sense, you could say, well, there is a kind of a rational capacity that is based on the idea that both being and thinking are indexical. So in a sense, there is a common indexicality. There is a common element.
Right.
It does not mean
that there's a bridge.
Yeah, but there's no capacity. There's no reason here.
Sure.
There's no reason. It's true. That's why it's paradoxical. Because when you say everything is indexical, you're talking about everything, but not in indexicalized way. Yeah. So that's why it's a paradoxical metaphysics. That's why it's a paradoxical position. Yeah. But in any case, even accepting this paradox, you can also say, you can take different positions about that. But I mean, from an indexicalist point of view, this is as far as you go. You don't go into a realm which would enable you to actually come up with a capacity, a general capacity that is independent of the situation you are. You make statements about things in general, but those statements are just statements. They're not, they don't build into a capacity to actually deal with things independent of any particular situation, particular circumstance where you are.
For sure. Right. Yeah, and then because I was thinking about the cosmopolitics, as you would put it, of questioning reason right now. Yeah, in the sense of okay, so we know, neo-rationalists and their, I don't know how to say it, their bet on reason and intelligence and all of that scheiße, and human exception and all that stuff, which is nasty. Okay, but the idea of beginning to question reason um, could be dangerous right now in the sense of like, for example, with like AI or even like other living beings, yeah. Because like when it seems okay, so we found out recently, I don't know, whales have alphabets and shit, and elephants have names and all that stuff, yeah. So there's a lot of people like that Franz de Waal guy who's like big primates need more rights and all that stuff, you know, that looked at it and was like, okay, so reason is the goalpost. Okay, so then if we can show you, yeah, if we can prove that these other things have reason, yeah, maybe that changes things. Maybe that shakes the human exception. Maybe that, you know, and being like, okay, no, actually, you know, there's no reason, guys. Sorry, you know, that was never a thing. Humans also don't have a reason. Could, in a way, move the goalpost to something else that would once again become unattainable for some other species, or even like AI, for example, yeah, consciousness in other forms or whatever, yeah. But in a way, so again, it's all about which political bet do you think is the best, yeah, which cosmopolitical bet, whatever, yeah. But I'm sure that there's a lot of people like Franz de Waal and all those motherfuckers that spend their life researching whale alphabets and stuff that would be like, bro, come on, we were like on the door to prove that they also have reason. Now there's no reason. What the fuck? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
Why do you think that's like the
Yeah,
appropriate political bet? Yeah.
I mean, the appropriate political bet is to actually come up with terms that are more interesting, and I think reason is, you know, the way I would suggest is that the vocabulary of reason is a bad vocabulary because it's based on the idea that you know, there is a general being and then there is a general thinking, and those two things can relate to each other through a general relation. Yeah.
Sure.
And I think this is a bad thing. For instance, to prove that you have language, for instance, to make it like closer to what you're saying, to prove that animals have language, to prove that plants have perception, can be understood in very different ways from understanding them through reason. So the idea that they have reason, you know, I mean, I would suggest, put in your terms, that the goalpost would be, you know, something else. Yeah, you shouldn't
Right.
formulate them in terms of something that is so vague and so elusive as reason.
Yeah.
So I mean, basically, you dispense with the idea of reason. Yeah, you just dispense with that, yeah, and take it from there.
No, right, but don't you think, talking about effectivity, yeah, I mean, there's also an argument for the effectivity of like, okay, if you want to like say that like humans are the exception because they have reason, whatever that is, and okay, look, Aristotle, you know, provided that this is reason or whatever. Reason is this bridge between this, you know, the generality of thought and world and stuff. Don't you think there's like a political value to like, okay, you're differentiating through that, and we're proving that this that has always been the differentiator is not a differentiator. You know what I mean? Look, whales do the same thing we do, fucking whatever. Look, AI can also separate based on contradiction and whatever, yeah? So you need to accept it. Then to be like, okay, no, throw reason in the trash and let's come up with other goalposts and other things and ours. Like, don't you?
No,
doesn't that seem like a more difficult and maybe ineffective?
No. I think
you know
it's quite effective. This is what I meant by, for instance, think about perception and think about language. Think about these things.
Sure.
There are goalposts, obviously. I mean, have been goalposts in terms of like safeguarding the human exception.
Uh-huh.
So basically, you've got like, oh yeah, we master language. Oh, we have perception in the sense that we have some capacity to vary our perception of circumstances and stuff. We have genuine perception and capacity to understand what is what is abnormal in terms of what we're used to, etc. Whatever. Yeah? All these things, they compose reason. So instead of using a word like reason, we will use words like those. Yeah,
Right.
we consider these things. So in fact, I mean, those words. I mean, people formulate things in terms of like breaking with the goalpost of reason. But in fact, the goalpost is not really reason. It's like something else that is effectively doing the job that reason is supposed to be, or is portrayed like being doing. So so yeah. So yeah, I think. For instance, I think, I mean, my suggestion is that if we start thinking in terms of archives and retrievals, you get farther, basically in a sense, and then you'd have like a kind of a very different way of connecting being and thinking, because thinking and being will have the same root. So they're not connected because they actually see each other and they relate to each other, they meet each other. They actually connected in the sense that they have the same root, they have the same structure, they do similar things. The mechanism of their functioning is the same or is similar. So I think this is so. For instance, I think a lot of what we think in terms of, I mean, mind, for instance, just to give you a silly example, people think of intelligence. Intelligence is the capacity to actually, in normal, ordinary parlance, people understand that intelligent people are those who have a great amount of knowledge. I'm sure a lot of people are ready to actually criticize that, for sure.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the reason for that is that we really, it's very hard to actually separate whatever intelligence is, the capacity to deal with reasons, and memory. So, this is one of the things that intrigues me. And then reason sort of seems to be standing alone, independent of memory. But then memory is crucial for the whole thing. And I think it does like a lot of, far more of the job than we normally think. So I think, we should switch to a different vocabulary. That doesn't mean throwing away all the efforts to actually bridge humans and animals, or plants and humans, or whatever. It's not about throwing all this away and saying, oh, let's start from scratch. No. I mean, basically, we're going to use this, but we describe this work in a different way.
For sure. Right. No, I see the benefits of that political.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Betting, yeah.
But the thing about you're saying about neo-rationalism is that, in a sense, you end up being committed to things like, for instance, reason purifies itself, and I think this is something that wouldn't make sense, and even if. And I think this is where it gets interesting from your first and second question, especially the first question. Even if we formulate a kind of a Davidsonian perspective, where you can say that the majority of things that you say are consistent, even though you cannot show which ones are consistent. You cannot spot contradictions, but you can guarantee by an independent argument that the majority of things you say are consistent. The majority of things people believe are consistent, etc. Everything one believes is consistent until anyone proves the opposite, etc.
Right.
Now you cannot have the resources with that kind of Davidsonian image to actually go on and claim that reason purifies itself. And I think this is where it gets really complicated, because and then the purification has to do with divergence, because if there is a route to purification, that means that there is no divergence.
Sure.
There is a kind of a single
path forward that reason will guide us.
So one track thing, yeah. And this is what but I think is a bit more problematic than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you can make room for the idea that reason is dispersed in a system, and you cannot spot where reason is, right? You cannot spot where non-contradiction is.
Right.
But I mean, you cannot say anything
Okay.
specific about how reason is purifying, is developing itself, is actually becoming conscious of itself, etc., etc. So I think that's far more complicated in the light of this kind of arguments, this kind of paths, yeah, divergence and undecidability.
Right. Right. No, for sure. Yeah, I mean it's yeah, I don't know, it's pretty insane back to have in the 21st century. Holy shit, man. Reason purifying itself. But no.
Yeah, but for instance, if you think in terms of norms, I think a lot of people find it very plausible. If you think of that norms kind of get better as they are used and they are reformulated, etc., and then they get better and better. And you see instances of that, yeah.
Sure.
Like for instance, in legislation, legislation is getting better, etc. But then, in a sense, you just assume that that basically norms are going to be able to you assume a one-track thing. You assume that
Sure.
norms are going to bring with themselves everything that needs to be brought in,
Mm-hmm.
and then understanding, which is, in my view, always kind of very local and situated. Understanding is going to eventually be kind of converging together towards a path of norms. And I think, I mean, in a sense, there is some plausibility to the basic idea, but then in a sense, when you make these big claims about reason sort of going this way, I think it loses, its strength.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, yeah, when you consider the idea of, norms needing a community to the extent that Wittgenstein puts it, it's already kind of fucked. Because what you're saying, yeah,
Yeah,
communities will guide norms through different directions. It is what it is. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. That's all I have, really, my guy.
Well, thank you very much. That was great.
Thanks, my guy.
That was very good. Let's stop this. How to stop this?
Cara, falar as coisas em inglês é muito difícil. Puta que pariu.